Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very, very warm welcome to Pakistan's pavilion at Davos, Inspiring Pakistan. We'll start the event with the name of Allah, the Qirat.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد
And now the anthem. Please raise for the anthem. A very good meal awaits you, but also a lot of intellectual stimulation. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers. My only request to all of them are, because they are so learned and they speak so often, but today I'll request them to limit themselves to maybe 5 to 8 minutes. But we'd love to carry on the discussion post your initial input. So the theme for the last two World Economic Forums were polycrisis, and that term proliferated globally. In Pakistan, you heard about people talking and saying about what is polycrisis and how do we address it. And this time it is crystallized into chaos, conflict, and climate change. But with this backdrop, we invite you to imagine an inspiring Pakistan. And why this title? This title, perhaps because everybody under this roof understands Pakistan's potential, is committed to Pakistan's growth, also understands that there are problems, but knows for a fact that there is a turnaround, that it will happen. So this is not about changing the narrative about Pakistan. This is about putting in front of you facts about its demography, which is very young, 70% people under the age of 35, its geography, which cannot be ignored, its women who are doing miracles, and so much more. I have a list of speakers who are going to talk about it, and they're not all from Pakistan, but they understand Pakistan. They follow developments in Pakistan, and they know that the turnaround is round the corner. I also want you all to put your hands together for Mr. Ikram Sehgal for keeping this torch burning for the last 20 years. So, my first speaker is Michael Kuckelman, director of the Wilson Center for South Asian Institute. He also writes on policy affairs, and at least 50% people in this room follow him on Twitter. Michael Kuckelman, the floor is yours, but I'll request you to take the mic.
Thank you for. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Well, thank you. Let me just say thank you, first of all, to my friend Ikram Sehgal for having me here. It's truly an honor. It's my first time at Davos. And let me say that one could not ask for a better backdrop for a speaking engagement. So in my brief comments, I wanted to frame this comment as a paradox. I would argue that there are few countries that have as many untapped. There are few countries that have as much untapped potential as Pakistan does. But few countries have faced as many obstacles in tapping into that potential. This is what I find inspiring about Pakistan. The potential it has, the wide array of resources that it has. And when I talk about resources, I mean that both literally and figuratively. One, let me talk about territorial resources. So here I'm talking about the highly strategic real estate that Pakistan occupies. I mean, you all know this. If anyone has looked at a map, no matter where one's from, Pakistan serves as a gateway to the Middle East, to Central Asia, to East Asia. It straddles the Indian Ocean, which is known as one of the most strategically significant sea spaces of the 21st century. So this really positions Pakistan as a potentially critical node for connectivity and trade. The second resource that Pakistan has in great abundance is meteorological resources. Pakistan is blessed with ample sunlight and wind, which makes it a potentially impactful catalyst for renewable energy. Third, and this is something that everyone knows about, I don't need to go into this, mineral resources. Pakistan is a country that's blessed with significant levels of mineral reserves. Fourth, again, something that we all know about, and this was alluded to before, human resources. A large, young, and increasingly urbanizing and tech-savvy population. The median age in Pakistan has been about 21, 22 for a number of years, and the median age over the next few decades is going to stay quite young, according to UN projections, in the 30s. So this positions Pakistan potentially very well for what demographers refer to as a demographic dividend. Few countries have youth bulges as large and long-term as Pakistan's. Fifth and finally, and this is the one resource that I think many people tend to overlook about Pakistan that it has, is historical resources. And here what I'm really referring to is the rich, ancient, historical legacy that Pakistan has. I would argue that many people not in Pakistan, and probably many Pakistanis themselves perhaps, don't know or don't remember that Pakistan is a cradle of Buddhism. This is a fact that many people don't realize. It's quite remarkable, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So there's a lot of potential for tourism in this regard. But a lot of this potential, so much of this potential has been squandered for a number of reasons. One could talk about them. I'm not going to go into them. Convergence of crises, security issues, economic stress, and so on. Elite capture. There's all types of things that one could talk about, structural impediments. I think there's something poignant about this. The fact that it's a country with so much potential that's been unmet in so many contexts. Pakistan, many of you will remember, Pakistan has had quite a few hopeful moments in years past. I think that many of you will remember that at one point, Pakistan was thought by many economists to potentially be the next Asian tiger. And until the early 1990s, Pakistan's growth trajectory was actually more favorable than India's was. And I think if we want to look for a microcosm of this trajectory, I would actually suggest Pakistan International Airlines, which is something that I'm sure many of you have heard of. It's the state airliner. PIA was once arguably the best airline in the world, unequivocally so. But if you've seen what's happened to it in recent years, things have gone in a different direction. A number of things have happened that have put it in a troubled state. So this is, I think, what makes this discussion difficult. There is much potential. There's been hopeful moments, but then you have continued challenges. One argument that's often been made about Pakistan, and often convincingly, is that it's resilient. This is really important. I think when you talk about what's inspiring about Pakistan, this is another key area to highlight. Pakistan doesn't let all these setbacks bring the country down. And this enables the country and its people to bounce back from catastrophic flooding, from terrorism campaigns, from economic stress, and so on. This is very true. And again, I find this very inspiring about Pakistan. You've had magazine covers. I think Time magazine at some point after a particularly horrific flood in Pakistan that described Pakistan as the world's most resilient state. Pakistan has also been described as the world's most dangerous country by certain Western magazines. So it's nice to see this reference to Pakistan in the Western media as the world's most resilient state. But what I worry about is that if you make the resilience argument too much, it risks becoming a crutch. The resilience essentially becomes an excuse to accept the need to just get by, stay afloat, muddle through, which is another term one hears a lot about Pakistan, and not take the big steps that need to be taken to address the deep-seated issues that cause the problems that require the resilience. I do think Pakistan can tap into the potential in some of those areas that I mentioned earlier with relatively little effort. If the security situation were to permit, and if visa regimes were sufficiently efficient and liberalized, there's no reason why Pakistan can't make more inroads in its tourism industry. But I think we can all agree that a lot needs to change on very deep levels in order for that potential to be tapped into fully. I won't go into that now. I think it's probably not my place to be leading that discussion, but I'll end with just one thought on what I think would better enable Pakistan over the longer term to start capitalizing on all that untapped potential. If I may, the country's leadership, not just the current leadership, any leadership, needs to truly invest in society, invest in the masses. Access to healthcare needs to be increased on mass levels. Public education needs so much work. We talk about all the kids not in school in Pakistan, but there are also many kids that are in school, but they're not learning because of missing teachers, because they're being taught in a language that they don't understand, or because their families don't have the money for the transport needed to get to school. If you invest in your young people and educate them and keep them healthy on mass levels, good results will follow. So I'll end there. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Michael Kettleman. That was inspiring indeed, but also stating some important facts about the country. Like I said earlier, the meeting today is not about changing the narrative of Pakistan. It is about making an informed decision about Pakistan. And that is why we have people like Michael talking about it, because he constantly follows developments in Pakistan, also does some very objective commentary on it, and we all look forward to it. And now I'm going to invite Adam Weinstein, Deputy Director of the Middle Eastern Program, Quincy Institute, to share his views with us. Again, a view from the US.
Well, first of all, I agree with everything that Mr. Kugelman said, especially about the visas at the end. It's actually a travesty that Pakistan is not a top tourist destination, and I think that can change someday. I'd like to thank Mr. Segal and Pathfinder and the audience for being here. And, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but they always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Well, I'm definitely in the right room because there's so many more qualified and erudite and knowledgeable people than me. I feel ill-equipped to even be up here. But nevertheless, I'll share my thoughts. I want to take us back for a moment because Mr. Segal had asked me to think about Pakistan's place in the world for this talk. And there was a man named James Michener who won the Pulitzer Prize in fiction in the United States for his book Tales of the South Pacific. But he also published another book in 1951 called The Voice of Asia, and it was a collection of essays in which he had gone around Asia to China, South Korea, Japan, I think Malaysia, and also to Pakistan, and he shared his observations. He wasn't a researcher or an expert, he was a writer. And these were, I'm going to share with you a couple lines from his essay on Pakistan that was published in 1951. He wrote, "I have never seen so hardworking a government as Pakistan's. It is literally picking itself up by its own intellectual bootstraps." He wrote, "Pakistan defies the law of political gravity. It should have collapsed long ago, but it has become instead one of the most vital nations in Asia." And he also wrote, "Politically, economically, and socially, Pakistan is one of the most hopeful portents in Asia." Now, I'll stop there, but you get the point. And you wouldn't really find that kind of writing about Pakistan today, but the problems of today were not always a foregone conclusion, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And I think Mr. Kugelman made that point as well, that at one time it was viewed as a potential Asian tiger economically, and I think it could be again. After all, in 2100, it's projected to be the third most populous country in the world. Now, I get to that point, which is that there's a fallacy, which is the too big to fail fallacy. And you often hear that repeated in Pakistan. They say, well, CPEC is the pilot project of the BRI. We have connectivity. We're absolutely indispensable when it comes to counterterrorism. And I think that too big to fail fallacy has held Pakistan back, because it actually encourages mediocrity. It encourages getting by. It encourages Pakistan being reliable, being reliant on how other nations might use it rather than its own potential. So I would actually encourage Pakistan to move beyond the too big to fail fallacy. Pakistan's too big to be inconsequential, but it's not too big to fail. It could fail, or it could be a monumental success, depending on what choices are made. I also think there should be a 10-year moratorium on the word potential when it comes to Pakistan. I wish we would stop talking about the potential of Pakistan and start talking about what Pakistan has to offer today. And we could talk about what it has to offer tomorrow, but that's irrelevant if the right decisions aren't made today. So what are the real questions that I think we should discuss in the coming days? And I hope to learn from all of you, because I think I'm ill-equipped to answer these questions. So instead, I'll pose these questions to all of you, and we can discuss them in the days to come. Will Pakistan remain attached to extracting geopolitical rents, borrowing liquidity from abroad to temporarily promote consumption at home? Or will Pakistan invest in real economic and GDP growth that lifts its people up? Will Pakistan take the 2022 floods for the premonition that they were, or merely view it as another opportunity to extract rents rather than actually solving the problem and investing in real environmental resilience? Will Pakistan invest in education so that the youth bulge is an asset, or will let it remain a liability? Because Pakistani politicians often talk about the youth bulge as if it's just apparently an asset. It could be an asset, but it could be a great liability if certain trends in education and literacy and jobs for young people are not reversed. Will Pakistan embrace the status of a middle power? And Pakistan is a middle power. Or will it hyphenate itself with India and Afghanistan? And I used to be very critical of the United States for hyphenating Pakistan with Afghanistan. I hate the term AFPAC. But I think in recent years, it's actually, to some degree, Pakistan that's hyphenating itself with other countries, while the world is ready to view Pakistan as an important nation in and of itself. But Pakistan has to embrace that status. And it can't engage in a sort of survivalist mindset when it engages in relations with China or the United States or Europe. It has to engage from a place of confidence. And of course, the world must also recognize Pakistan's inherent importance as a nuclear power, as, I'm going to break my rule, a potential economic powerhouse, and as a country that has a growing population that really is going to place it among the most populous, potentially the third most populous nation by 2100, and it's time for the world to take Pakistan seriously and engage with it one-on-one, and not view it merely in the context of whatever is the regional problem of the day. So I think if countries like the United States and China and countries in Europe are willing to work with Pakistan in that manner, and Pakistan is willing to embrace its own identity as a middle power and a regional power, I think a lot can be achieved. So thank you.
First of all, gentlemen, I need to thank you for keeping time. That's a huge favor to me. And I completely agree with the potential part. I'm a professor. When my student is not doing so well, I tell him, you have a lot of potential. But I think it's also about the right kind of stories not getting out of Pakistan. There is so much happening on the ground. And unfortunately, the media coverage that we get, the press that we get, is very, very negative. So some of the speakers down the line are those who are going to tell you what good is happening in Pakistan and how much. It's not just about potential. It's about people working very hard to tap that potential to change the story. So the story of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, is changing. And with that, I'm going to invite another friend of Pakistan, Dr. Lesenberger, President, Swiss Chamber Asia. He's a familiar face in our events, a friend of Pathfinder, a friend of Pakistan.
I have a bad knee. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. First of all, let me really thank Ikram Segal and the Pathfinder Group for all they have done for Swiss Cham Asia. We are really grateful for you being part of us, and I am grateful for being able to say a few words at this occasion. If it comes to advice, then I would advise every Pakistani not to listen to a Swiss who is trying to give advice to Pakistan. Because, as you can imagine, Switzerland, the rest of Switzerland, not Davos, but the rest of Switzerland doesn't know how to deal with chaos. The rest of Switzerland doesn't know how to deal with polycrisis, because we are used to many crises. Whereas Pakistan, over the years, they have learned to deal with that. That leads to a certain amount of up and down. It leads to an amount of instability, but it also leads to a great amount of creativity on how to deal with these polycrises. And all the people that I know from Pakistan, they have a lot of things that I don't have. They know how to deal with crisis. They know how to deal with political changes. They know how to deal with geopolitical changes. And they kind of find their way through. You know, one day it will be this prime minister, the other day another prime minister, and the old one goes to jail, and still you can like them all together. And still you don't have to be angry at each other. It's something that would be very difficult to pull off in Switzerland, so don't listen to me. Do it the way you do it. In my eyes, my predecessors as speakers, Michael and Adam, they are very hard to beat, because I almost use the potential that Pakistan has. Of course it has great potential, but what in my eyes Pakistan has to do, they have to find their own way of dealing with it. They should offload the burden of dealing with this superpower, dealing with that superpower. They should focus on what is their way, and maybe, and now this is something coming from a Swiss, so be careful, maybe don't listen to it. The nation that I see from far away is really looking out for its own interest in a very hardcore way, is India. I haven't seen in recent times a country that is better able to position its own interest whenever they deal with left or right or up or down or west or east. They focus on their interest. Pakistan maybe has to learn to focus on its own clear interest, and maybe that will bring it forward. As I said, don't listen to me. Do what you have learned to do. But if you learn how to do that, in my eyes, things will look rosier. And maybe it is adhering to what Adam said, get rid of that too big to fail notion. Find a place where you feel comfortable, and I think it'll be the right place. One thing that I adore in Pakistan is its vibrant journalism. You know, I think it is really almost impossible in the West to find opinions that are not either completely mainstream and deafen everything else, or being so extremely off the beaten track that you can't really take them serious. Whereas in Pakistan, you see vibrant discussions left and right and up and down of opinions that are hardly to be seen in the rest of the world. Keep it up. Try to either emulate the best out of it and become a great independent Pakistan that leads the region into a peaceful region, as was seen in very recent times in the newly built connection with Bangladesh. Keep on going forward with Ikram in leadership. You can't fail. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now we have what I call the face of Pakistan. The, the young, the fresh thinking that Pakistan is now known for, the startups, the entertainment industry, the journalism, the new face of Pakistan. I will invite Mr. Habib Baracha to say a few words.
Thank you. Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, first off, thank you very much, Mr. Sehgal, for having me here. You know, when we speak about Pakistan, I've spent a fair amount of time. My background is that I'm from a family that has done business across the length and breadth of Pakistan. I've had startups in the US. I've been a Hollywood film producer. I've had 6 credits. I'm probably the largest film producer in South Asia. And I've also created a 11.5-minute musical journey through Pakistan called Wada, which you will find on YouTube. So whenever I think about Pakistan and its potential, that's the word we're not supposed to say, I see that there is a bright hope. But why is it that we're not reaching it? We've been having conversations, people coming in, telling us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, but it doesn't materialize into growth for some reason. So where is the problem? Because you have to address the problem. I mean, it's one thing to be an ostrich, but if you really want to face the challenge head on, you have to address it. And the best thing we have is that we have a population where the median age is 21. And I was actually at an event earlier today where the CEO of Regeneron, which is a biopharmaceutical company, said this, and it really, really resonated with me. He said, you have to challenge dogma. So you have to take it on, because if you want to innovate, if you want that growth, you can't accept things as they are. You have to move forward. You have to challenge. You have to accept that, okay, we got something wrong. Because that's the only way you're going to move forward. And that's the only way you're going to be able to fix things. And that's where the youth plays a very, very large role, which sadly at the moment is not represented in most conversations. Every election I see all parties, they will talk about how the youth is so important. But when it comes to execution, it's very limited. Sadly, that job creation, that enablement, which comes from creating startups or empowering them, is not happening. And I think that's a problem because of the mindset. Because either it's exposure, I mean, our 5-year plans, which we often like to quote that have been taken by other countries as well and converted into really successful models. Why are they not converting for Pakistan? It's not that we don't have the right ingredients. We have a very, very talented workforce, young population. We have all the resources, amazing locations, but it's not happening. So where are we going wrong? That has to be addressed. And a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, with exposure. Because why is it that we're in Switzerland and having this event, and imagine if an event like this was happening in Chitral, would even people from Karachi go? Highly unlikely, because a lot of people are just not as aware. Would people from abroad come? Maybe they'll come to Islamabad. Would they go to a lot of those places for an economic event, not a tourism event? Probably not. And that's the narratives that we need to change. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's where you have to partner up with the government. And the ideas come from the private sector. And I am representing the private sector, but I'll say that even in that, the private sector has also not really played its part, because we accept everything as mediocre and we say that's fine. So the way to do it would be if we actually bring in the right expertise, we focus on the youth, and we address the problems that we have had by first understanding what they are. Like, for example, if I had to write policy, I can make you 50 companies in a month. It could be worth $100 million. Why? Through technology. And I know we are going to have a panel on digital Pakistan, because technology is the game changer. If you notice, for those who saw the US President's inauguration yesterday, all the top CEOs of technology companies are there. So why is Pakistan not building out? If you look at Indian stock market, if you look at the US stock market, if you look at the UK stock markets, it's primarily technology companies which are leading and at the top. Where are the Pakistani technology companies and why aren't they there? We have maybe one or two, whereas we have a population which represents almost, it's like the fifth largest country on the planet. And this can easily be done, because no problem that Pakistan faces is a problem that's not been addressed or solved by the rest of the world. So I actually think that we could grow very, very quickly, given one, we have a young population, and the fact that we have a smart population who wants those changes, who wants that innovation. The only thing missing is the path. And the path comes with partnerships, through international partnerships as well as local partnerships, and creating that ecosystem where people are able to thrive and live a happy and content life.
Thank you, Mr. Habib Parasha. Habib Parasha, I like to think, is the new face of Pakistan. There are many like him. I meet them every day. Habib Parasha is lucky and has the go-getting attitude of telling people what he's doing, and he's out there. But there's so many stories in Pakistan, and I meet these young people every day. The only thing that inspires me about Pakistan is being in the classroom, because I know the turnaround will happen there. With the population 70% under the age of 30, how can it not happen? And also because you'll also hear from the government is now committed to it. And now I'm going to invite somebody who doesn't live in Pakistan, but is a Pakistani and does everything he can to help. So this is Dr. S. Irfan Ali, MD, President, Pioneer Medical Group. Has an interesting story to tell, I understand. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me over here. This is back in 1997. I landed up in Chicago. Went to my orientation, first orientation at a large hospital. And during the orientation, one of the people who was sitting next to me asked me, "Where are you from?" And most of the time, sometimes when you say from Pakistan, it is not the right connotation. Sometimes people like to hear. Regardless, I said I'm from Pakistan, and he asked me, "Do you have cars over there?" I looked at him and I said, "This is one of the reasons why all these camels we use to build this new nuclear bomb. It was just very difficult to take that." My point is that Ikram bhai, what you are doing today, it is the brand recognition. It is creating influence, being a strategy to have all of us over there. So people can see what potential, opportunity, potential exists for us. So it all really comes down to living in US. One of the biggest things that I see, especially in the Pakistanis too, that how are we really creating influence? Influence is not just done by buying beautiful houses or Lamborghinis and all of those things. What are you doing for the communities that you live and the communities that you come from? And I think it all really comes down to that what difference you are trying to make. Now, one of the things that when I came to America, started as a physician, trained in Boston, came down to Tampa, and started to think how to do things differently. We created multiple healthcare companies, but one of the things that we do is teach individuals how to improve their leadership and how to improve their influences. One of the things that I'm doing with Indus Hospital in Karachi right now, that we send experts from our companies back to Karachi and work with the workforce, including the physicians, how to improve their influence, how to be better leaders, how to teach others how to be better leaders. And I think this is the best thing that we can do apart from brand recognitions, making sure that we teach our young individuals how to create strategies and not just create ideas and strategies, how to execute them. And I think that that is one of the biggest things that I see, that everybody has an idea, but everybody doesn't know how to execute it. And I think people in and around the table, I know that they can definitely do that. Now, another thing that I feel very strongly about. So I manage a couple of foundations too. Our foundations provide medical missions globally and also locally. We take care of thousands of homeless individuals in America, also in other countries too. But one thing that I noticed, I remember I was walking down. I personally like to do some of those things too. I was walking down in one of the downtowns, and I saw this guy sitting at the side of the corner of the street, and he looked at me, and then all of a sudden he said, "The Muslims are here. The Muslims are here." And whenever you hear this word, it makes you pause most of the time. Oh, should I run? What should I do? So I said, "Well, why are you saying that?" He said, "Because you guys come and help us." That is not the kind of recognition that we see. That is the influence strategy, not just for yourself, but for those people over there, wherever they are, or if they are in Pakistan. I think that's how we can create influence. And then the brain drain people, significantly more smarter than me over here, when we leave Pakistan, how are we connecting back? The things that we are learning, how can we teach back? So it all comes down to the human factor. And I think that are we keeping the human factor in mind in business, in medicine, in science and technology? I think that this is all it really comes down to. This is my short message. I appreciate all of you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Irfan Ali mentioned Indus Hospital. Indus Hospital is going to become one of the largest hospitals in Sindh and perhaps Pakistan. But I also want you to paperless entity, and it does not have a billing counter, and it caters to everyone. It has not even asked if you can pay the bill. You're just taken in and you're taken care of. And it largely happens through philanthropy. I know I'm supposed to now introduce Ms. Nadra Panjwani as the chairperson of the Karachi Council for Foreign Relations, but something else this woman is known for is her philanthropic work. The top 10 countries where maximum philanthropy happens. Nadra Panjwani, the floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I'm truly delighted to be in this beautiful place and very grateful for the opportunity to address this august gathering. As we all know, Sega Saab has been sponsoring the Pakistan Pavilion gatherings at Davos for the past 2 decades, and this is his way of showcasing all that is sanguine and encouraging about Pakistan. Due to a combination of internal and external factors, the international media's portrayal of Pakistan remains generally dismal. Problems such as terrorism, the Afghan conflict, and regional hostilities tend to always overshadow the many positive things. Under such unfavorable circumstances, it is critically important for all of us to keep highlighting Pakistan's strengths and attractions. Hence, forums such as this can be very helpful for sharing facts, for accuracy, for constructive dialogue leading to meaningful progress. The theme of today's gathering is Inspiring Pakistan. And in this context, one of the many good and promising things in Pakistan is the immensely generous nature of our people. I would like to talk briefly about the role of philanthropy in the development of Pakistan. The story of philanthropy is as old as the history of human civilization and is not confined to any specific region or race. Around 2,500 years ago, the term philanthropy appeared in Greek mythology, celebrating values of love for humankind. All major religions of the world direct their followers to do what is right and just for those in need. The Torah requires that 10% of a Jew's wealth be allotted to a righteous deed. In Christianity, charity is considered as the highest form of love, as recorded in St. Paul's New Testament. And for Muslims, zakat, a mandatory charitable contribution, is a pillar of faith. What is commonly known in the West as a foundation has its origin in the Islamic institution of Waqf. This is basically the endowment of private wealth for a specified activity of public benefit. In most Muslim countries, waqfs are still a vehicle of choice for the establishment and perpetuation of charitable deeds. In terms of its GDP, Pakistan ranks high in the international philanthropy context. Considering that we are a developing economy with limited resources, our per capita giving is phenomenal. In 2019, the Charities Aid Foundation ranked Pakistan at #1 in the Global Giving Index, with 82% of Pakistanis reporting that they had actually given in charity in the past month. This index looks at the frequency of giving and not the volume. Another report in 2020 by the Stanford Social Innovation Review found that Pakistan ranks among the top 10 countries in the world in terms of charitable donations as a percentage of its GDP. Family values, sense of responsibility, and religious obligations are strong drivers of philanthropy in our country. People support good causes generously, and corporate donations have grown manyfold over the past 1 decade. There is, however, a general tendency to support causes which provide instant gratification, like giving free meals, giving at shrines, and giving handouts to the poor. These provide temporary relief, but not long-term solutions to our chronic problems. Therefore, we need to consider the concept of strategic giving and take the more challenging and uphill route of developing institutions that will empower our people and help them liberate their families and communities from the clutches of poverty and dependence. We now have many social welfare institutions established by individuals using their own resources for public benefits. Although the work of various foundations differ according to the legacy of the founder and the context in which they operate, they are all the result of visionaries who basically want to make the world a better place. This network of welfare institutions is involved in setting up hospitals, education institutions, relief centers, cottage industries, scholarship programs, orphanages, vocational training centers, etc. These organizations provide much needed basic social service to millions of people. According to the Pakistan Center for Philanthropy, which is a certification body for welfare organizations, we have over 15,000 not-for-profit organizations operating. The quantum of giving by individuals and corporations annually runs into several hundred billion rupees. This is how our civil society addresses the many gaps and cracks left by the government in our social safety net. It is very encouraging to note that over the past 2 decades, the trend of public-private partnerships has emerged as a vital strategy for promoting social welfare. We face numerous challenges like poverty, inequality, inadequate healthcare, and limited access to education, and our governments are hampered by resource constraints and systemic inefficiencies. In this scenario, the private sector, through its dynamism and innovative strategies, has demonstrated its potential for promoting social welfare and development. By combining resources and expertise, such collaborations can drive positive change more effectively. We now have many examples of this, like the Citizens Foundation, the Sindh Education Foundation, the Punjab Education Foundation, the National Commission for Human Development, the Akhobat Foundation, the Aga Khan Development Network, the Indus Hospital Network, and many others. Having worked in the field of public service for over 30 years, it is my firm belief that partnership with government has a synergistic effect and widely enhances the scope and scale of private initiatives. To improve governance and align with global best practices, Pakistan has taken important measures to regulate the NPO sector and comply with international standards. These include oversight through provincial charity commissions and federal laws, overseeing registration, audits, governance, and compliance with financial and operational rules. There is strict monitoring of foreign funding for charities and its utilization. A national centralized database for NPOs is being created to ensure better coordination among regulatory bodies. These measures reflect Pakistan's commitment to greater transparency and accountability in the charity sector. No discourse on philanthropy in Pakistan is complete without mentioning the phenomenal services of Abdul Sattar Edi, an angel of mercy whose unwavering commitment to the downtrodden, the marginalized, and the forgotten earned him a place in history as one of the greatest humanitarians of all times. Edi believed in helping anyone in need, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. He established countless free clinics, orphanages, shelters for the homeless, and rehab centers for the mentally ill. His ambulance service, which he started with a single man, has become the largest volunteer-based ambulance network in the world, with a fleet of several thousand ambulances and also air ambulances and rescue boats to assist during disasters and emergencies. His work transcended barriers of religion and politics. He once said that no religion is higher than humanity, and indeed his legacy reminds us that service to humanity is the greatest form of worship. At a time when our world grapples with inequality, injustice, discord, and hostility, Edi's example remains a guiding light because he was not just a man, he was a movement, an ideology, and a symbol of hope and pride for Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, philanthropy is not about the size of our wealth, it's about the size of our hearts. Let us all find ways, big and small, to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you very much for your time.
And that's exactly what people like Ms. Nadra Panjwani are doing to ensure that people are not left behind. And the government and the private sector are working in partnership with each other for the same. I now have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Hassan Sharif Khan. He's in the IT sector in the USA, and he's promoting generative artificial intelligence, if I've read this correctly. I would also like to inform you, ladies and gentlemen, that this event is being streamed live on many Pakistani channels right now.
Thank you. I'll elaborate a little bit about what I do. So I work at Amazon Web Services. For the last 2 years, we've been working heavily with generative AI. Specifically, I've been working with financial services institutions, and it's a growing trend. As I'm walking up and down the promenade, you see AI pretty much pasted all over the place. And there's kind of an excitement and buzz around it. ChatGPT and OpenAI's created that buzz around it, but most of you have interacted with it through some kind of a chat interface to ask questions and get answers, and you're fascinated a little bit about what's going on in terms of a computer being able to answer something like that. So I want to take a step back and kind of talk a little bit about what it is, what kind of impact it will have, because there's still quite a bit of confusion around it. And then I want to tie it back to what opportunity it presents for us in Pakistan. So to begin with, I kind of want to start with a step back. 9 languages die every year globally. They disappear because the speakers are no longer associated with it, or the language dies for many reasons with technology that's accelerating as well. Every language has inherently tied to it some morality or a culture tied to it. Some cultures can't exist without the language existing. And that sort of is a very important part of this, because I'll give you a couple of examples. If I sold you a calculator and I said this is a very honest calculator, in the English language that doesn't make sense. It has to be an accurate calculator. Why? Because inherently the word has a possibility of the word honest being used for something that has free will and can potentially do the opposite and tell a lie. So an honest calculator is not something you end up buying. You want the accurate calculator. Now imagine I build a artificial intelligence on the English language. Behind the scenes, they're called LLMs. You'll hear that term quite a bit as you go around the conferences. Large language model is what LLM stands for. So if I take ChatGPT, build it on English, even though I'm interacting with it in Arabic or Pashto or German, it is behind the scenes just translating it back to English, getting an answer from the brains, the large language model, and then translating it back to you. And you're excited because you're getting an answer in English. There's a lot lost in there because it translated it to English, used the morality, culture behind that language, and gave you the answer based on that. And so this is essentially the difference between, we had artificial intelligence before, traditional artificial intelligence with machine learning, and that was more mathematical based and statistics based. Now with the new foundation models and GPT, the G and the T and there being part of that large language model, they are based on math plus language. So this is an important part of it. Language is everything. And as you sort of look at how quickly innovation is happening in that space, anybody not building foundation models, anybody not building large language models is going to lose an inherent part of this. And tying it back to Pakistan, there's more than 16 languages, and these are not dialects, right? For those of you who might not be familiar, so I speak Pashto as an example, and that itself has about 4 or 5 different unique dialects. But each one, in terms of how the words are used and the sort of culture tied to it, the culture of hospitality tied to it, has its own inherent basis. Hygiene is an interesting one, right? How do you kind of look at hygiene from a culture like Pakistan or culture like abroad, right? Like if somebody's interacting with a chatbot and asking questions about a hygiene, there's inherent cultural things in the language and the responses coming out of it. And that's just a minor example. So it isn't important for Pakistan to build not one, but at least 16 large language models that are going to preserve those languages. And now let me kind of tie back to what it would take to do that. At this point, you've come across OpenAI and how many billions of dollars they're raising. We've seen the acceleration of investment in China and how they're using some of the existing some of the existing models to build new ones, which is an interesting development. But the reason for the large investments is that there is an infrastructure. Power is a big part of it. Water, and then the ongoing energy costs associated with that, clean water supply to get the infrastructure, the hardware built for it. and then hosting those models and then doing continuous training on them for you to build the next level. So this is a great opportunity because we were talking earlier. Even the most expert person on generative AI has maybe 2, 3, 4 years of experience at this point. So we're at the starting point, and this is kind of similar to when you look at web apps and mobile apps and web development in the 90s. This is the 90s right now when it comes to generative AI and app development on generative AI based applications. And the impact of this is massive because if you look at each one of you have come from various disciplines, we heard some of the speakers. Most of your employees are currently doing work that is 80% of it is of your daily business is automated. The employees exist only for the exception scenarios because you really need the employees to make sort of quick decisions. That's where generative AI plays that role. So it is going to be pervasive. It is going to change a lot of how you do things, and as it changes that remaining 20% that IT till a couple of years ago was not able to tackle, that has massive impact on employment, how you measure GDP, and Pakistan has this excellent opportunity for having it being in the position with the sort of IT consulting houses being in a position where we're developing and kind of offering a cheaper alternative in an English-speaking country to what India was doing in the 90s. And so it's an excellent opportunity to kind of step in and double down on some of the education we were talking about earlier, from producing data scientists, the hardware, the infrastructure associated with it, and then power supply is going to be huge. I mean, we've struggled in Pakistan with electricity, but now if you're going to host those foundation models in the data centers, that power supply, that water supply consistently is going to be critical because otherwise you're going to incur downtime. So I'm going to violate the potential word again, but essentially there is a huge potential in this space to kind of leapfrog some of the competition because everybody's starting out. So that's my inspiring message for the coming years, and hopefully we'll do things in that space. Thank you.
That was actually very interesting. Thank you so much. And how can you not have the government respond to all the questions that have been raised? And aptly so, because it's public-private partnership, it's investment, and the list goes on. So we have with us Syed Naveed Qamar, Special Assistant to Chief Minister for Investment and Public-Private Partnership, Sindh Investment Department. Sir, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Very much. I'd like to start by thanking Ikram Sehgal Saab, his family, the Pathfinder Group. You guys have always been, really a beacon of hope for us. And I remember last time coming here, and I really got inspired by everything that you were doing. And I wanted not just the investment department, but I wanted a Pakistan show. I wanted TDAT to be involved. I wanted corporates to be involved. Get everyone together and project Pakistan in the way that it should be projected, in the way that it deserves to be projected. So anyhow, I know everyone's, I don't want to stop you from getting into your food. There's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, when we're talking about inspiring Pakistan. Like Michael, you said, Pakistan's got all the right ingredients, right? It's just putting everything together. For some reason, I feel like we went wrong somewhere. Whether it was consistency in our policies at the government level, whether it was that lack of focus or positioning ourselves, like we talked about, and what should that position be, and what is it that we are trying to achieve? I think sometimes we also, at the government level, lack that focus, and that is something that we as Pakistanis, as the government, should focus on and try to give ourselves a direction so we can take that trajectory. No doubt, Pakistan is a resilient country. Whether it's our geopolitical situation, wars, floods, now climate change that's creating this huge impact. We had floods just a couple of years back, And Pakistan doesn't really create those sort of emissions that would create so much of an impact. But we have to face the consequences from those impacts. The floods a couple of years ago really taught us a lesson, really brought us together as a nation. Federal government, provincial governments were all working together. And we had a lot of collaborators and partners from around the world. And I feel like that is an inspirational story because what we have learned from that and where we stand today. And I've got the CEO of SPHF with us here today. SPHF stands for Sindh People's Housing Foundation. It's the largest project of its kind, building Khalisa, a million houses, 2.1 million houses in the province, all flood resilient houses, all houses low cost, under $1,000 for people across the province, people who, all they had was the agricultural land that they sat on for their sustainability, for their food, for their income, which was all underwater for months. And this is hundreds and thousands of acres of land. So we had to learn from it. We had to learn from it fast, and we had to bounce back. And I feel like SPHF has been that example for us with partners like the World Bank, the ADB, many other global partners coming together to celebrate this victory and supporting us through it. On the other side, we're talking about public-private partnerships. That's my favorite subject to be talking about, and that's what I represent here. PPPs have been a huge success. Our PPP unit in Sindh has actually been ranked by The Economist magazine as the sixth best in the world in that entire region. Very transparent mechanism. We work with the best partners, again, World Bank, ADB, ENY, KPMG, PwC. We have a very transparent process. I'm glad we talked about Indus Hospital because Indus Hospital is also a partner of the Government of Sindh. Government of Sindh alone gives them over 8 billion rupees every year annually. But that's just one example. We have SIUT, we have NICBD, we have another project that was a flagship for us that we not very popular here, but Tharkol, for example, huge project for the government, for the people of Pakistan and the Government of Sindh. We hope to use these skills on PPPs that we've developed for other projects, for agriculture, for food security, for education, technology. EV infrastructure is something that we're developing right now. So much, again, so much potential, but but I think we just need to channelize everything and bring it together. And I'm glad that forums like this give us an opportunity to talk about some of these cases and to learn from people like yourself from an outsider's perspective. That really helps us and motivates us to get in the right direction. So I let you all get back to your lunch. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor being here. Ikram Saab, thank you.
So thank you, Syed Kasim Naveed Qamar Saab. And now I will invite co-chairperson Pathfinder Group, Mr. Ikram Sehgal, for the vote of thanks. But I'm going to warn you, his vote of thanks carries a lot more. So over to you, Mr. Ikram Sehgal.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, let me thank everyone here for being here. We have been doing this for more than 2 decades, and we must say that the first thing I would say is that Shah Sahib has been a wonderful partner to us. And even though we know that this room, many people, and I've not named the countries involved, offered much more with this time and this slot. They never did it. They said it's your slot, will remain there. So thank you, Shah. I'll go over speaker by speaker. Michael, thank you very much. I mean, you really are an objective voice that really tells us the real things about Pakistan. And we're always grateful for it. And you did ask me, if I do remember, and both you and Adam asked me, what do you want me to say? And I said, I'm not going to tell you what to say. you can say much more than I can even have analysis about. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Adam. Both of you. Both of you are experts in your area. Both of you are experts from an outside point of view. Look at Pakistan. When we look at Pakistan, we tend to look at it differently. Outside, always best to get an outside view because that view then gives us reality check, which sometimes we lack. And I do feel that sometimes it's necessary, like, for example, Habib, I know he can be very critical, like, but, he held his horses today to promote Pakistan, but and he did it in a very nice way. Thank you. And of course, it was refreshing to hear you with you and I, Irfan Saab, and really we look forward to something more in Pakistan in the health sector, which maybe we can get a group together to cooperate. I know my friend Dr. Munir is sitting right here in the family because he's part of the family, so we should look forward to that. Of course, and Nadra and myself we go back someday because I was her predecessor as chair of the Karachi Council of Foreign Relations, and and got a wonderful job she's done. Right? Not exceeded our expectation, but eclipsed whatever else I was doing by a great many things that she had done. And of course, people don't know that the amount of effort she puts in, particularly in the different particularly in that, among other charitable ventures, people do not know. And it's a treat to see them when they come for occasions. It's a treat to see them come and sing for us and play music for us, etc., etc. And that is the thing, etc. And I think that goes a far way to show what she was talking about philanthropy. Philanthropy in Pakistan is vast. We are one of the most philanthropic people in the world, except it's not challenged properly. It's not that thing, etc. And I'm saying a lot of it is wasted going to these madrasas, and then some of them end up, that money ends up in the form of weapons and ammunition and bombs. And that, I think, needs to be challenged. I think each government that has come, and I must say that each government has come has tried in its own way to fix that. Ours, we have long association with the Swiss Chamber. You have really been a great partner all this time, and even in our work. And I must mention your wife, Dr. Ying, because sometimes I don't know how she doesn't drive you crazy because she comes up with such ideas, from time to time. It's really a kind dish. I'm privileged to have Qasim here, the minister. In 1972, I was in the army. That was about 52 years ago. Right? And at that point, I met his father, who was at time studying at that time. And of course, and his mother, of course, also. And of course, it's a treat to hear you speak eloquently. And really, I think one of the great things Sindh has done is to keep you there for the investment, because you really make the sales pitch credible, and that is what matters. And I think you've created a very good team, which is sitting there with you. And of course, the food sector, I'm a little busy with the telephone, but he's got 2.1 million houses to build, so he's got a long way to go, right? So basically, I will say to you that I also want to thank my Pathfinder group team. They set up this thing here. Now let me tell you a secret, and I'm not going to cast a comment on anyone, but just to put up this, if I'd given it to the hotel and the hotel would have said no, they can only use my vendor, it would have cost me 15,000 Swiss francs for this one. So I'm not talking about the panels which you're going to have tomorrow and day after. So you multiply 15,000 and 75,000 Swiss francs. I thought that that was good enough to bring 20 of my people with me to set this up. And this includes the chief operating officers and Salman is here also, and then Samad is here, right? These people, they set it up themselves with their own hand. That is what counts. That you have chief operating officers working with their hands to project not only Al-Qaeda Group but Pakistan. And that is what Pakistan is, what Pakistan youth is. And I think it's always good to have a son like Zarar, right? I find in the next life I would like to be more like him, right? I think my wife can tell you all the other things that are wrong with me, so I'm not that thing. But I'm grateful to Shanaz also. She's been supporting this, supporting me in World Economic Forum since 1994. That is 31 years ago. We attended 30 of them, and only 1 year we didn't. But it's always good to have homegrown support for your work. And we have a lot of young people here, bright people from Pakistan. And I'd like to mention here, Junaid here sitting with me, head of CP, and Farid Alam, whom I always look forward to find out what's going wrong with the economy. And he then tells me what's going right with the economy because he says buy stocks. I never indulge in stocks and shares, unfortunately. And I'd like to thank especially a special friend of mine, Paul Birchie. Paul Birchie, the owner of Panorama for over 50 years, right in the center of Davos. He sold it 2 years ago. And one of the clauses he kept there was that the Sehgal family will keep occupying this 11th floor during the Davos week. I fear that thing will not stay anymore because I think they are now subcontracting. The new owners are subcontracting somebody. But anyway, live and let live. What about Pakistan? Gentlemen, I want to tell you two things. Ladies and gentlemen. One, we must decouple ourselves. We have no business. If India wants to do business with us, good. India is a great country. It's got a tremendous economy. It's got a lot of resources. And we would love to do that. But India boycotts us to the extent they don't want to play cricket with us. They don't want to play cricket in Pakistan. They don't want to give us access to South Asia. So, all right, let's decouple simply. India needs us to come through to Central Asia, to go through to Europe by land access? We don't need them. So let's decouple India because why? I'm not going to talk about China, Pakistan economic corridor. I'm talking about the North-South corridor. I'm talking about the old RCD. I'm talking about the new corridor that's opening up to Africa, to Saudi Arabia and Oman. We are the center of it all. Right? And I shocked Michael a little bit in Washington recently when I told him about the fact. I said, why are these Chinese making so many aircraft carriers and submarines? Right? You think they want to change the name Pacific Ocean? No. They want to change the name the Indian Ocean to a Chinese Ocean. And the only way they can get there is land-based bases in Pakistan. So we don't want to go into the Chinese now. But don't push us into that. Look at us as what we are. A country having absolutely, second largest copper and gold reserves in the world, third largest gold reserves in the world, fourth largest cotton and cotton industry in the world, fifth largest milk producing, sixth largest rice producing, seventh largest wheat producing. We have developed the nuclear weapons. We have developed the nuclear missiles. The only Islamic country, and we are, it's the only, that is India specific. That is why nobody, I think now people may raise their voices, etc., etc. That is India specific. We want to that, etc. But my point is, look at us for what we are, and look at our youth that has come up. Look at our youth. We have a product here which we'll talk about not tomorrow or day after, which the World Economic Forum is sending the head of the Edison Alliance to talk about it, to talk about this product, which is basically it is something that reaches out to the poor, so that it is a financial inclusion, human empowerment thing given by the World Bank and regulated by the State Bank of Pakistan, etc. But the youth of Pakistan developed it. Nowhere. It's a product which has no equal. But my point is, it's the youth of Pakistan developed it. So thank you, everybody. And at the end, I'd like to thank my partners, Continuity Global Solutions. Here we've got the majority owner here, John de Blasio, Dr. Khaled, and Ben Shield, who lost my overcoat many years ago in this in this place, but I can forgive him for that because he remains a good friend. He bought a new one for me. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, and please, we look forward, God willing. My wife keeps telling me not to tell my age, but I'll probably be 79 this year, and hopefully next year I do this again. Thank you.